The sun was just beginning to paint the skies of eastern Burkina Faso with hues of orange and gold. President Ibrahim Traoré stood beside his gleaming black SUV, sipping a warm cup of tea as the morning breeze rustled through the air. He was about to embark on a journey to visit a rural youth center, where eager young faces awaited his arrival. The air was buzzing with excitement as speeches were finalized, drummers tuned their instruments, and the village square filled with anticipation. But despite the energy, something felt off. The team had already sensed that time wasn't on their side that morning. The plan was set, but as often happens, life had other ideas. Idrissa, one of the president's closest advisors, approached him with a concern. "Sir," he said, his voice tinged with urgency, "if we stick to the main road, we'll be hours behind schedule. But there's a route through the bush, quiet, no towns, and it'll get us there in less than 40 minutes. President Traoré's eyes narrowed. A shortcut, yes, but with risks that were hard to ignore. "Is the road secure?" he asked, his tone calm but sharp. Idrissa, without hesitation, nodded. "Yes, sir. It was cleared just yesterday. I personally supervised the work myself." But not everyone was convinced. Karim, one of the president's seasoned bodyguards, stepped forward. "I've never trusted that road. Too isolated. Too silent." The silence that followed spoke volumes. But the president knew the youth at the center were waiting. Time was not on their side, and the pressure to keep moving was building. After a brief pause, Ibrahim looked at Idrissa and made his decision. "Fine. We take the shortcut." The convoy rolled forward, a well-oiled machine of 5 vehicles. 2 armed trucks led the way, followed by President Ibrahim's SUV, with more armed escorts bringing up the rear. The road ahead was narrow, twisting through thick grasslands that stretched endlessly on either side. There were no towns, no homes, not even a hint of civilization, just endless silence. The dust kicked up behind them, swirling in the warm morning air, as the convoy advanced. The mood in the vehicles was quiet, save for the occasional crackle of radios and the soft hum of the engine. Everything seemed calm, almost eerily so. Idrissa glanced over his shoulder, a look of impatience flickering in his eyes. "We're making good time," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "We should be there soon." But the stillness of the road was unsettling. There were no signs of life, no villagers working the fields, no goats grazing in the distance, not even the scent of a fire. Just the whir of the engines and the rustling of dry grass. The deeper they went into the bush, the more isolated they became. 30 minutes passed, and yet, the silence never broke. No one spoke, but the unease began to settle in. Something about this road felt wrong. The convoy was moving at a steady pace when it happened. Out of nowhere, a large brown cow appeared in the middle of the dirt road, standing perfectly still. Its horns were chipped, its legs planted firmly on the ground, its calm eyes staring directly at the president's SUV. The driver slammed on the horn, but the cow didn't flinch. The soldiers in the lead truck shouted at the animal to move, but it didn't budge. The air felt thick with the sound of their commands, which seemed to carry no weight. The cow remained where it stood, blocking the entire path. Karim, the bodyguard, grunted in frustration. "It's just a cow. Get it out of the way." But as they tried to approach, the cow only stepped back slightly, then returned to its spot. It was as if the animal was holding its ground, unbothered by the shouting and the noise. One of the soldiers, growing impatient, fired a shot into the air. The sharp crack echoed through the stillness, but the cow didn't flinch. It remained there, staring into the convoy with an eerie calmness. It was almost as if it had a purpose, an unknown reason for being in that exact spot at that exact time. Inside the SUV, President Ibrahim watched intently, his mind racing. "Why isn't it moving?" he asked, his voice steady, though his eyes betrayed a hint of confusion. "I don't know," Karim replied, his voice tight with concern. "It's acting strange." Idrissa, now visibly anxious, spoke up. "Try driving around it," he urged. "We're wasting time." But Ibrahim's instincts told him something wasn't right. He looked at the cow again, feeling a weight in his chest. It wasn't scared. It wasn't running. It was just there, as if waiting for something. "Stop the car," he said suddenly, surprising everyone with the firmness of his voice. The convoy came to an abrupt halt. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the engine and the rustling of the tall grass surrounding them. President Ibrahim, his expression unreadable, looked toward the cow once more. It stood perfectly still, its eyes unwavering as if it knew something they didn't. "I said stop the car," he repeated quietly. The driver, hesitating only briefly, obeyed, bringing the SUV to a full stop. Karim and Idrissa exchanged uneasy glances. "What now?" Idrissa muttered, his voice tight with nervous energy. But Ibrahim was already focused, his attention fixed on the cow that remained firmly planted in the middle of the road. "Send a man to check under it," Ibrahim ordered. One of the guards stepped forward cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath him. He knelt, inspecting the dirt around the cow's hooves. Then, with sudden urgency, he pulled back sharply. "Sir," the soldier called out, his voice trembling, "there's something here." The entire convoy froze, and all eyes turned to the soldier, who was now kneeling with his hands carefully tracing something in the dirt. As he moved the earth away, the faint outline of a thin metal wire emerged. "I've found something," the soldier said again, his voice cracking. The soldier followed the wire with his fingers, inching it back across the dirt. The wire led directly to a spot beneath the cow, where the ground appeared disturbed. The guard's breath caught in his throat as he traced the wire to its end. "Sir, it's a landmine," he gasped. Karim's face drained of color. "3 of them," he muttered in disbelief, scanning the area where the mines had been carefully buried. 3 landmines, hidden under the dirt. Panic swept through the convoy as soldiers rushed to secure the area. Radios crackled with urgent calls for backup, but the realization set in, had the cow not blocked their path, they would have driven right over the mines. It had been an ambush, a trap meant for the president. The president stepped out of the SUV, his calm demeanor unshaken despite the chaos around him. His gaze moved from the landmines to the cow, then to Idrissa. For the first time, the advisor saw something unfamiliar in the president's eyes: fear. "The road was cleared," Ibrahim said, his voice steady but edged with disbelief. "It was supposed to be safe. Why was this here?" Idrissa's face grew pale, his usual confidence fading as the weight of the situation set in. I don't know, sir," he stammered. But President Ibrahim wasn't finished. He looked at the cow one last time, his mind racing. "We need to check everything," he said coldly. "Every inch of this road." The silence that hung over the convoy was thick with dread. Soldiers rushed to inspect every inch of the road, their weapons drawn, their movements quick and purposeful. The area was swarming with tension, but President Ibrahim stood motionless, his eyes never leaving the spot where the landmines had been uncovered. "Something doesn't add up," Karim said quietly as he approached the president, his voice tinged with disbelief. "This wasn't just an accident. Someone wanted you dead." Ibrahim nodded slowly, his gaze shifting from the mines to Idrissa, who was now visibly sweating. The advisor fidgeted, his hands trembling as he avoided the president's unblinking stare. "You said you personally cleared this road," Ibrahim said, his voice low but filled with authority. "You assured me it was safe. Why didn't you see this? Why didn't you find the mines?" Idrissa swallowed hard, his throat tight with fear. "Sir, I don't know what happened. Our team checked everything. We made sure it was clear." But Ibrahim wasn't convinced. His eyes narrowed, studying Idrissa's face with a sharpness that sent a chill down the advisor's spine. "Why were you so insistent on this road?" Ibrahim asked slowly, his tone measured but firm. "This wasn't even on the official travel list. You pushed hard for it, and now, we've almost driven straight into a trap." "You pushed for this, Idrissa." "Why?" I thought it would save us time," Idrissa stammered, his voice shaking. "We were late, the youth were waiting." "I thought," but Ibrahim cut him off. "No," he said, his voice hard. "You knew something. You pushed too hard. And I know it wasn't just for the sake of saving time. Karim, who had been watching closely, spoke up. This road doesn't even have clearance for us to pass. Someone must have known we'd be coming this way. They knew exactly when we'd be here. The reality was sinking in. This wasn't just an accident. It wasn't some random act of nature or coincidence. This had been orchestrated. But by who? The convoy commander, Siku, arrived on his motorbike with backup troops, his face grim as he surveyed the situation. "Sir, may I speak with you privately?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. They stepped aside, away from the commotion, where Siku turned to Ibrahim with a cold, steely look in his eyes. "I don't trust him," Siku said quietly, nodding toward Idrissa. "And there's something else you need to know." "Go on," Ibrahim said, his eyes never leaving his advisor. "We've been tracking Idrissa," Siku continued, his voice tight with frustration. "And we found something. One of his security officers was caught trying to send a location ping to an unknown number. We traced it. It connects to a satellite uplink. A foreign military firm's uplink, to be precise." Ibrahim's heart sank. His suspicions were confirmed. This was bigger than a simple betrayal. Someone with foreign ties had been involved in this assassination attempt. The president turned back to Idrissa, his expression now one of quiet rage. "You led me down this road, didn't you?" Ibrahim said softly, his voice laced with disappointment. "You put me in harm's way. And now, I'm asking you one last time, who is behind this?" Idrissa's lips quivered, but no words came. He stood there, unable to meet Ibrahim's gaze, his nervous energy almost palpable. The president turned to Siku, who had been watching intently. "Get him to speak," Ibrahim ordered. "And find out who else is involved. This goes deeper than we thought." The atmosphere around the convoy shifted, growing darker with each passing moment. Soldiers surrounded the area, their guns drawn and ready, eyes scanning the perimeter for any more signs of danger. But the real threat lay within the convoy itself. President Ibrahim's eyes were fixed on Idrissa, who now stood rigid, the weight of the situation sinking in. He had been a trusted advisor, one of the president's closest allies. And yet, here he was, caught in the web of betrayal that could have cost Ibrahim his life. "Idrissa," Ibrahim said, his voice icy, "I gave you my trust. You were supposed to protect me, to ensure my safety. And now, you've led me straight into a trap." Idrissa trembled but remained silent, his lips pressed tightly together as if fighting back the words that could no longer be spoken. The president's gaze never wavered, his eyes cold and calculating as he took in the full gravity of the situation. "Take him into custody," Ibrahim ordered. Karim, without hesitation, stepped forward, his hand moving to the holster of his weapon. But the president raised a hand, signaling for him to stop. "No. Take him back to the palace. We need him to answer questions. And I need to hear the truth from his lips." As Idrissa was escorted away by soldiers, his face pale and his eyes darting nervously, the president turned to Siku. "I want every device in the palace scanned. Every phone, every radio, every signal, every record. I want to know how deep this betrayal goes." Siku nodded firmly. "We'll find out who else is involved, sir. No one will escape this." As the convoy made its way back to the palace under full military escort, Ibrahim remained silent. The discovery of the mines, the strange behavior of the cow, and now the arrest of his advisor, everything was leading him to a single, undeniable conclusion. He had been betrayed by someone he trusted. The convoy rolled slowly, cautiously, the weight of the events settling heavily on Ibrahim's shoulders. His mind was racing. Who else could be involved? And how far did this betrayal run? As they neared the palace, a heavy silence had settled over the entire convoy. The tension in the palace was palpable. President Ibrahim Traoré had ordered a full investigation, and the halls buzzed with activity as officers, intelligence agents, and soldiers scoured every inch of the compound. The evidence of betrayal was stacking up quickly, and the questions were growing more urgent by the hour. But Ibrahim remained still in his private office, staring at the map spread before him, each line, each route, each detail representing something more than just a mere road or path. It was a symbol of the war now being waged against him. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a random assassination attempt. This was part of a calculated effort to dismantle everything he stood for. His phone buzzed, breaking his thoughts. It was Siku, his most trusted intelligence officer. "Sir, we've completed the scans of the palace. We've found something." Siku's voice crackled over the line. Ibrahim's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "There's more than just Idrissa involved. We've traced communications to several foreign entities. One of them has strong ties to private military contractors, the kind that operate in Africa with deep pockets and no loyalty." Ibrahim's hand tightened around the phone. "Who are they?" "We're still following the leads, but one name keeps coming up. It's linked to a powerful network. A foreign firm with connections to Western intelligence agencies." The implications were chilling. The plot against him was no longer just an internal betrayal, it had grown into something much more dangerous. Ibrahim turned his gaze to the window, his mind racing. For the first time, the full scope of the threat became clear. This wasn't just about his presidency, it was about something larger. Forces with power and resources beyond anything he could have imagined were trying to topple him. They weren't just fighting for control of Burkina Faso, they were fighting for control of Africa's future. He stood up from his desk, his back straight, his resolve hardening. "We're not just going to sit here and wait for them to strike again. I won't let them take this country from the people." Ibrahim knew what he had to do. He was going to confront the enemy head-on, expose the conspiracy, and show the world that Africa could no longer be manipulated or controlled by outside powers. "Prepare the broadcast," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "It's time for the world to know the truth." Siku's voice on the other end was firm. "Understood, sir. We'll make sure the message is clear." Ibrahim looked one last time at the map. There was no going back now. This was war, and the fight would be for Africa's future. The room was silent as President Ibrahim Traoré sat before the camera, his face calm, his demeanor unwavering. Around him, the military and intelligence officers stood ready, their eyes fixed on the monitors, waiting for the signal. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Ibrahim had chosen this moment carefully. It was more than just a press conference, it was a declaration. A message to the world. A message that Africa would no longer be a playground for foreign interests. The cameras began rolling, and the president's face appeared on screens across the nation. His voice, steady and strong, filled the airwaves. "Citizens of Burkina Faso, and to all who are listening," he began, his words measured but filled with weight, "this week, an attempt was made on my life. Not by rebels, not by forces from within, but by those who hide in the shadows, those who manipulate from behind closed doors, wearing the suits of diplomacy and power. They think they can control us. They think they can control me." He paused, his gaze unwavering as he spoke directly into the camera. "But they have underestimated us. They have underestimated our strength, our resolve. They have underestimated the power of a people united in purpose." Ibrahim leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping in intensity, but still holding that commanding presence. This was not a random attack. It was orchestrated by a network of foreign powers, people who think they can dictate the course of Africa's future. They believe that by using my own advisors, by planting landmines in our paths, they could break us. His eyes hardened as he continued, his words cutting through the silence. But they were wrong. Because when they planted those mines, they didn't realize that Africa has something they cannot control. Something greater than money, something stronger than weapons. The spirit of its people. And when that cow stood in the middle of the road, when it blocked our path, it wasn't just an animal, it was a symbol. A symbol of the strength and resilience that runs through the veins of this continent. And it saved my life. The room seemed to hold its breath as Ibrahim stood up from his seat, his presence filling the space. "To those who tried to take me down, who thought they could destroy us from within, I want you to hear this: you will not succeed. We will not be intimidated. We will not be controlled. We will stand tall, with pride, and with dignity, as one united Africa. He paused again, his gaze piercing as he delivered his final words, his voice filled with an unwavering conviction. And to the people of Burkina Faso, to the youth who are waiting for a future of hope and opportunity, I promise you this: we will rise. We will not bow. And we will protect our own destiny. No one will take that from us. The cameras clicked off, and the room remained still. There was no applause, no immediate reaction, just a silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. Ibrahim's words had been spoken, and the world would hear them.